Tamara Jackson settles into her plush first-class seat, her silver star necklace shimmering under the cabin lights, when Vanessa Holt, a sharp-eyed flight attendant, lunges forward, rips it off her neck, snarls, "Trash like this doesn't fly," up here, and crushes it beneath her heel as passengers gasp in disbelief. Tamara's heart races. The supervisor storms aboard, but the plane jolts into takeoff, leaving her trapped with Vanessa's icy smirk. What's coming next at 30,000 feet? Hey, where are you watching from? If you stand for justice, hit like, subscribe, and join us for more epic showdowns. Tamara Jackson leaned back into the cushioned embrace of her first-class seat, the hum of the aircraft engines vibrating faintly through the floor. As the Los Angeles skyline shrank beneath the clouds, she was 34, a chef whose hands had kneaded dough into Michelin star magic. And this flight to New York was her victory lap after years of sweat-soaked nights. In a cramped kitchen, her fingers brushed the raw skin at her collarbone, where her silver star necklace had been moments ago. The jagged edges of the broken chain still vivid in her mind. That necklace wasn't just jewelry, it was her father's last gift before cancer stole him away, a twinkling promise etched in metal that she'd rise above anything. Now it lay crushed, and the woman who did it, Vanessa Holt, stood 10 feet away, her blonde ponytail swaying as she handed a champagne flute to a grinning passenger with the ease of someone who hadn't just shattered a stranger's soul. Tamara's pulse thudded in her ears, a drumbeat urging her to act, so she straightened her spine, smoothed her navy blazer, and called out in a voice that cut through the cabin's murmurs, "I want my necklace back, now." Heads turned, eyes wide, but Vanessa didn't flinch. She pivoted slow as a predator, her lips curling into a sneer that didn't reach her hazel eyes. "You don't belong here, neither does that junk," she said, loud enough for the whole section to hear, then spun toward the galley, yanked open a trash bin, and tossed the mangled star inside with a flick of her wrist, the clang echoing. Like a gunshot, passengers froze, some fumbling for phones, others shifting uncomfortably in their oversized seats, and Tamara felt heat flood her cheeks, not from shame, but from a fury that had been simmering since Vanessa's first glare. She stood, her 5'7" frame taut with purpose, and marched to the bin, fishing out the necklace with trembling hands, the silver smeared with coffee grounds and grease, but still hers. She held it up, a silent triumph, and locked eyes with Vanessa, who stood rigid, arms crossed, her uniform pristine despite the chaos she'd unleashed. "This means more than you'll ever know," Tamara said, her tone steady, a blade wrapped in velvet, and for a split second, she thought she'd won, that the weight of those words might pierce Vanessa's armor. Across the aisle, a white man in a pinstripe suit, his hair slicked back like a Wall Street caricature, let out a low chuckle. "She's got nerve," he muttered, his voice dripping with amusement as he sipped his scotch, and a ripple of smirks spread among a few others, their gazes darting between Tamara and Vanessa like spectators at a bullfight. Tamara clutched the necklace tighter, its broken points digging into her palm, and started back to her seat, each step a declaration that she wouldn't crumble. She'd faced worse, the sneers of food critics who'd called her dishes ghetto before tasting them, the landlords who'd raised rent on her first diner because a black woman couldn't possibly afford it. But this felt different, sharper. A woundery opened in a space she'd earned with every late-night recipe tweak. She sank into her chair, the leather creaking under her weight, and exhaled slow, willing her heartbeat to settle, convincing herself she'd reclaimed her dignity, that Vanessa's venom had been neutralized by that small act of defiance. The cabin buzzed with whispers, a woman in a silk scarf muttering that was uncalled for, while a teenage boy in headphones filmed with his phone tilted at a clumsy angle, the red light blinking like a warning. Tamara tucked the necklace into her pocket, its jagged edges a reminder of her father's gravelly voice, "Keep shining, kid." And she almost smiled, almost let herself believe the worst was over. Then Vanessa's shadow loomed again, her heels clicking with purpose as she returned from the galley, a radio clip to her belt crackling faintly. She leaned close to a co-worker, a weary man with a buzz cut who nodded like a soldier taking orders. And Tamara caught the tail end of her hushed words. "This isn't over. Tell them she's disruptive." The co-worker glanced at Tamara, his eyes narrowing, then slipped away toward the cockpit, and Vanessa turned back. Her smirk faint but vicious, a promise carved into her features. Tamara's stomach twisted, a cold realization sinking in that this wasn't just a petty spat. It was a fuse lit and burning fast, and the woman who'd crushed her star wasn't done breaking things. She scanned the cabin, the faces blurring, into a mix of curiosity and indifference, and wondered how far Vanessa would push this, how deep the roots of that sneer really went. The plane leveled off at cruising altitude. The seatbelt sign blinked off, and Tamara gripped her armrest, her mind racing, because she knew now that retrieving her necklace wasn't the end. It was the spark, and the fire was already spreading. Tamara Jackson sat stiffly in her first-class seat, the mangled silver star necklace now a heavy lump in her blazer pocket, its broken edges pressing against her thigh like a bruise. She couldn't ignore the cabin's soft lighting cast long shadows as the plane soared 30,000 feet above the sprawling deserts between Los Angeles and New York, the hum of conversation a dull roar around her. She'd gotten it back, fished it from the trash with her own hands, and that felt like a win, a small defiance against Vanessa Holt's venomous glare. Her chest still ached with the sting of those words, "You don't belong here." But she'd faced uglier battles. Customers who'd spat in her food at the diner because a black woman dared to cook for them. Investors who'd laughed her out of boardrooms until her Michelin star shut them up. This was nothing, she told herself, just a bitter flight attendant with a chip on her shoulder. And she'd already proven she wouldn't bend. The pinstripe-suited executive across the aisle swirled his scotch, his eyes flicking to her with a mix of amusement and disdain. But Tamara ignored him, focusing on the rhythm of her breath. In and out, steady as a metronome. Then a shadow fell over her, broader than Vanessa's, and she looked up to see a man in a crisp navy uniform, his badge gleaming with the name Greg Tatum, supervisor stitched in gold thread beneath it. He was 40-ish, with a jawline that suggested military roots and eyes that scanned the cabin like a hawk. "Miss Jackson," he said, voice low but firm, "I heard there was an incident. Mind filling me in?" Tamara's pulse quickened, hope flaring as she recounted Vanessa's attack. The necklace ripped off, crushed, tossed away. Her words clipped and precise despite the tremor in her hands. Greg's brow furrowed, and he nodded, then turned toward Vanessa, who lingered near the galley, her posture rigid, arms crossed tight across her chest. "Holt, up here now," he barked, and she strutted over, her heels clicking like gunfire, her face a mask of forced innocence. "She's exaggerating, sir, I was just tidying up. It got caught," Vanessa lied, her voice syrupy sweet, but Greg cut her off with a raised hand. "Save it. I saw the trash bin. You don't accidentally stomp on jewelry. Apologize, right?" Now Vanessa's lips pressed into a thin line, her eyes flashing with something dark. But she turned to Tamara, muttering through gritted teeth, "I'm sorry, okay? It won't happen again." Each word sounding like it burned her tongue. Greg nodded, satisfied, and leaned close to Tamara. "We'll handle this. Enjoy your flight." Before striding back toward the cockpit as the plane's engines roared into full ascent, Tamara exhaled slow, a rush of triumph flooding her veins. She'd stood her ground, gotten an apology, and the supervisor was in her corner. Maybe this was over after all. She slipped the necklace from her pocket, cradling it in her palm, its bent points catching the overhead light, and for a moment, she could almost hear her father's gravelly laugh. "Told you, kid." Shine bright, the cabin settled, passengers, sipping drinks, flipping through magazines, the teenage boy with the phone lowering it, his screen dark, and the woman in the silk scarf offering a faint, approving nod from across the row. Tamara leaned back, the leather cradling her shoulders, and let her eyes drift shut, willing the tension to seep out of her bones, convincing herself that Vanessa's venom had been drained, that the rest of this flight would be smooth skies and quiet victories. The plane climbed higher, the seatbelt sign still glowing faintly, and she almost smiled, almost let herself sink into the plush comfort she'd earned with years of chopping onions, until her fingers bled. Then a jolt rocked the cabin, a tray clattering somewhere up ahead, and Vanessa emerged from the galley, her movements sharp, deliberate. A stack of steaming bowls balanced in her arms. She approached Tamara's row, her hazel eyes locked on her, and before Tamara could react, Vanessa's foot caught the edge of a bag, or so it seemed, and the tray tipped forward. A cascade of boiling chicken noodle soup splashing across Tamara's chest. The heat seared through her blazer, her white blouse clinging wet and scalding to her skin. And she screamed, a raw, guttural sound that split the cabin's calm. Pain exploded across her torso, her hands flailing to swipe the burning liquid away, but it clung like napalm. Blisters already bubbling under her collarbone where the necklace had once rested. Passengers gasped, phones snapped up, the teenage boy's camera rolling again. And Vanessa stumbled back, her hands empty, her voice rising in a panicked chirp. Oh my God, I tripped. It was an accident, I swear. But Tamara doubled over, caught the flicker of a smirk tugging at Vanessa's lips, a quick, cruel twist that vanished as fast as it came, and her blood ran cold beneath the heat. Greg was gone, disappeared behind the cockpit door during takeoff, and the weary co-worker from earlier rushed over, his buzz cut glinting under the lights, tossing Vanessa a towel she didn't use. She needs help, get a kit, a woman shouted, but Vanessa just stood there, her arms limp, watching Tamara writhe as if it were a show. The executive chuckled again, louder this time. Clumsy girl, he muttered, and Tamara's vision, blurred with tears and rage, her burns throbbing in time with her heartbeat. She clutched the armrest, soup dripping onto the pristine carpet, and realized this wasn't over. Not by a long shot. Vanessa hadn't tripped, she'd aimed, and that apology had been a mask for something uglier, something that was only just beginning to unfold. Tamara Jackson hunched in her first-class seat, the soaked fabric of her blouse sticking to her chest like a second skin. Each breath a sharp stab as the burns pulsed beneath her ruined blazer. The scalding soup had left red welts blooming across her collarbone, a cruel echo of where her silver star necklace once hung. And the cabin's air felt thick with the scent of chicken broth and her own simmering fury. Her hands trembled, not just from pain, but from the weight of Vanessa Holt's smirk, that fleeting twist of lips she'd caught mid-chaos. Proof this wasn't an accident, but a dagger aimed straight at her. Passengers gawked, some with pity, others with phones raised like vultures circling a kill. The teenage boy's camera still blinking red while the woman in the silk scarf pressed a wad of napkins into Tamara's shaking fingers. I'm fine, she lied, her voice hoarse. But she wasn't, not with Vanessa hovering near the galley, her hazel eyes glinting with something too close to satisfaction. Tamara straightened, ignoring the fire racing across her skin, and locked gazes with her attacker. You did that on purpose. I want to speak to Greg again now, she demanded, each word a brick in a wall she was building against this woman's venom. Vanessa's face shifted, innocence plastered over like cheap paint. It was a mistake. I tripped, you saw, she said, her tone lilting with mock regret. But the weary co-worker nodded eagerly, backing her up as he handed her a fresh tray, his buzz cut catching the light like a halo he didn't deserve. The cabin buzzed, whispers snaking through the rows, and Tamara felt the weight of eyes, some doubtful, some amused. The executive in the pinstripe suit sipping his scotch with a grin that said he'd seen this play before. She stood, wincing, as her blazer peeled away from her burns and marched toward the galley, her 5'7" frame a tower of resolve. I'm not letting this go. Get your supervisor, she insisted, her voice rising over the drone of the engines. Vanessa's co-worker hesitated, then slipped toward the cockpit, and for a moment, Tamara thought justice might claw its way back, that Greg's stern jaw would reappear and pin Vanessa to the wall. She'd built of lies, minutes dragged, the plane slicing through clouds at 30,000 feet, and Tamara sank back into her seat, clutching her pocket where the broken necklace rested, its jagged points a lifeline to her father's pride. Then Vanessa returned, alone, her steps slow and deliberate, a shadow creeping closer, and Tamara's gut twisted, sensing the trap before it sprang. Vanessa leaned over a passenger to rose up, a silver-haired man in a cashmere sweater, whispering something that made his brow furrow, and when she straightened, she spun toward Tamara with a theatrical gasp. Sir, your Rolex, it's gone. I saw her fiddling with her bag earlier. The man patted his wrist, then his jacket. panic flashing in his eyes as he barked, "That's a $10,000 watch. Where is it?" Vanessa darted to Tamara's seat, her hands plunging into the open tote at her feet before Tamara could react, and pulled out a gleaming gold Rolex, the clasp dangling like a noose. "Thief!" Vanessa shouted, holding it high, her voice a siren cutting through the cabin. And heads snapped around, phones tilting. The teenage boy zooming in as the executive let out a loud, "Well, I'll be damned." Tamara's heart slammed against her ribs. "That's not mine. You planted it," she snapped, lunging for the watch. But Vanessa yanked it back, cradling it like evidence in a courtroom drama. The silver-haired man stood, towering over her. "I want her searched, arrested, something," he bellowed, and Vanessa nodded, her lips twitching with suppressed glee as she waved the weary co-worker. "Over, call the captain, she's dangerous." Tamara's mind raced. She'd left her bag unattended for seconds when she'd confronted Vanessa. Long enough for the snake to slither in, and now the cabin was a jury, their stares convicting her without a word. The captain's voice crackled over the intercom, clipped and cold. "Miss Jackson, report to the crew area immediately. Remain seated until then." And Vanessa pointed to a cramped jump seat near the galley. "Move, now," her tone dripping with triumph. Tamara stood, Burns screaming, and shuffled to the seat, her dignity a tattered flag. The necklace in her pocket her only anchor as passengers murmured, "Should have known," and typical. She sat, isolated, the Rolex glinting in Vanessa's hand like a trophy, and for a moment, she thought this was it. They'd pin her as a criminal before the wheels touched JFK. Then inspiration struck. She pulled her phone from her blazer, thumbed through her photos, and found it, a selfie she'd snapped right after takeoff, her bag zipped shut. Time-stamped 10 minutes before Vanessa's discovery. She held it up, voice steady despite the chaos. "Check the time. I couldn't have taken it." She set me up, and the teenage boy leaned closer, his footage catching the screen as the silver-haired man squinted, doubt creeping into his scowl. Vanessa's face tightened, her fingers curling around the watch, but the captain emerged, a burly man with a gray mustache, and snatched the phone, peering at the image. "Looks clean," he grunted, handing it back. "Sit down, both of you. We'll sort this on the ground." And Tamara returned to her seat. The Rolex returned to its owner, her chest heaving with relief. Thinking she'd dodged the bullet, that truth had clawed its way out. She sank into the leather, the burns a dull roar now, and let herself believe she'd won this round, that Vanessa's lie had crumbled under a single photo. But Vanessa didn't retreat. She slipped back to the galley, her radio crackling as she hissed into it. "She assaulted me when I found the watch. Tell security at JFK. Full arrest." Her voice low but venomous, and Tamara caught the tail. And, her relief curdling into dread, the captain glanced back, his mustache twitching, then returned to the cockpit, and Tamara realized the trap wasn't sprung yet. It was widening. And when those wheels hit New York, a swarm of badges would be waiting, hungry for Vanessa's twisted script. Tamara Jackson sat rigid in her first-class seat, the plane's descent into New York a slow plunge into a storm. She could feel brewing beneath her feet, the burns on her chest throbbing under her damp blouse like a warning she couldn't silence. The cabin lights dimmed as the aircraft sliced through the final layers of clouds. JFK's runway lights flickering into view 30,000 feet below, and she clutched her phone, the selfie that had cleared her name still glowing on the screen, a fragile shield against Vanessa Holt's latest lie. She'd outsmarted the Rolex frame-up, proven it with a time-stamped photo, and the captain had growled at Vanessa to sit tight, his gray mustache bristling as he stomped back to the cockpit, leaving Tamara with a flicker of hope that truth might actually win this time. Passengers had settled, the teenage boy's camera finally off, the silver-haired man fondling his returned watch with a grunt of relief, and even the executive in the pinstripe suit had gone quiet, his scotch glass empty. Tamara's fingers brushed the broken silver star necklace in her pocket, its jagged edges a lifeline to her father's grit, and she let herself breathe, slow and deep, convincing herself that when those wheels touched down, she'd walk off, this plane free, Vanessa's venom flushed out by cold, hard evidence. The seatbelt sign blinked on, the intercom crackled with landing instructions, and she almost smiled, picturing her next move, a hot shower at her hotel, a call to her sous chef back in Los Angeles to gloat about surviving this nightmare. Then, the plane jolted onto the tarmac, a hard thud that rattled her burns, and the cabin doors hissed open, revealing not freedom, but a wall of blue uniforms swarming the jet bridge, their badges glinting like teeth. Vanessa's voice had reached them. Her radioed lie about assault, a poisoned dart fired from 30,000 feet, and now it was real. Boots pounding as a hulking TSA agent with a buzz cut, and a sneer barreled into first class, his meaty hand clamping onto Tamara's arm before she could unbuckle. "Tamara Jackson, you're coming with me." Random screening, he barked, his voice a gravelly echo of Vanessa's venom. And she caught his name tag, Carl Holt, the same last name, sending a chill down her spine as he yanked her from her seat, her blazer tearing at the shoulder. Passengers gasped, phones snapped up again, the teenage boy fumbling his device back on. And Tamara stumbled into the aisle, Burns screaming as Carl dragged her toward a side exit. "Wait, I didn't do anything," she protested, but his grip tightened, bruising her wrist as he snarled, "Keep talking, makes my day." The jet bridge blurred past, a tunnel of gray steel, and he shoved her into a stark interrogation room, the door slamming shut with a clang that echoed in her skull. Concrete walls loomed, a single metal table bolted to the floor, and Carl loomed over her, his bulk filling the space as he ripped the necklace from her pocket, its silver star glinting in his fist before he stuffed it into his own jacket. "Nice try, thief," he growled, then slammed her against the wall, her burns slamming into cold cement, a cry ripping from her throat. "You don't get to win," he slurred, his breath hot with coffee and spite. And Tamara's knees buckled, pain and rage warring in her chest as she realized Vanessa's family tree had roots deep enough to choke her here on the ground, outside. Passengers pressed against the jet bridge's glass partition, their phones a constellation of red dots filming through the haze. The woman in the silk scarf shouting, "Let her go." But Carl kicked the door shut, locking it with a twist, his sneer widening as he cracked his knuckles. "Vanessa said you're trouble. Guess she was right," he muttered, pacing like a caged wolf. And Tamara's mind raced. She'd beaten the frame up, cleared her name mid-flight. But this wasn't about evidence anymore. It was personal, a blood feud in a uniform. And she was trapped. Her burns pulsed, her wrist ached, and she scanned the room. No cameras, no witnesses. Just Carl's bulk and the necklace he'd stolen, a trophy for a war she hadn't started. She straightened, voice shaking but firm. "You're on camera. Out there, they saw you take it." And Carl laughed, a low rumble, good luck proving that. As he leaned closer, his shadow swallowing her whole, Tamara's heart hammered. She'd faced racism before, the sneers, the slights, but this was a fist closing around her throat, and she wondered how far Carl would go, how deep Vanessa's hate ran through this man's veins. Hey, comment number 1 if you think Tamara deserves justice after this brutal setup. Hit like if you're raging at Carl's abuse of power, and subscribe to see her fight back against this family of snakes. Tell me, folks, have you ever seen a TSA agent pull something this dirty? Or is Carla Nulo now? Can Tamara claw her way out of this concrete cage? Or is Vanessa's cousin about to bury her for good? Stick around to find out. Tamara Jackson pressed her back against the cold concrete wall of the TSA interrogation room, her chest a map of throbbing burns under her torn blazer, the air heavy with the stale tang of Carl Holt's coffee breath as he loomed over her, his meaty fist still curled from snatching her silver star necklace. The locked door muffled the distant clamor of passengers beyond the jet bridge, their voices a faint lifeline she couldn't reach, and her wrist pulsed where he'd gripped her, a purple ring blooming beneath her skin. Carl paced the cramped space, his TSA badge glinting like a predator's eye, and smirked. "Vanessa warned me you'd squirm, but you're done now." His voice a gravelly taunt as he patted the pocket where her father's gift now rested. Stolen again in a blink. Tamara's mind spun. She'd beaten Vanessa's Rolex lie mid-flight, proven her innocence with a selfie. But this was no courtroom, no captain to grunt reason into the chaos. Just a hulking cousin with a vendetta and a locked door. Her burns screamed with every shift, her blouse stiff with dried soup, and she scanned the room. Bare walls, no windows. A single flickering bulb overhead casting jagged shadows across Carl's sneer. She'd faced worse, kitchen fires that nearly took her diner, bank reps who'd smirked at her lone pleas because a black woman couldn't possibly succeed. But this was a cage, and Carl was the lock. "You're on video, they saw you," she said, voice steady despite the quake in her gut. And Carl snorted, "Those phones don't mean squat in here," stepping closer, his boots scuffing the floor like a bull ready to charge. Then a clatter broke the tension, a janitor's cart ramming the door outside, and Carl spun, cursing under his breath as a key scraped the lock, the handle jiggling. Tamara seized the split second, her chef's reflexes kicking in, and darted to the table, snatching Carl's forgotten walkie-talkie from its edge, her fingers trembling as she pressed the button, shouting, "He's got my necklace. He's threatening me. Help." Carl whirled, lunging with a roar, but the door creaked open. A weary janitor in a gray jumpsuit blinking in confusion, mop in hand, "Wrong room, sorry." He stammered, and Tamara bolted past him, the walkie-talkie crackling with her recorded plea as Carl's fist grazed her shoulder, missing by inches. She stumbled into the jet bridge, passengers gasping, phones flashing red. The teenage boy from the flight shouting, "She's out," as the woman in the silk scarf rushed forward, steadying her. Carl barreled after, his face a mask of rage, but Tamara ducked into the crowd, weaving through stunned travelers, her burns of fire she ignored as she clutched the walkie-talkie like a grenade. She spotted Carl's desk in an open TSA booth, papers strewn, a coffee mug teetering, and there, glinting in a drawer ajar, her silver star necklace, its bent points catching the fluorescent glow. She lunged, snagging it as Carl's boots pounded closer, and slipped it into her pocket, her heart slamming against her ribs. A fleeting triumph as she turned to face him. "You lose," she spat, holding up the walkie-talkie, its static buzzing with her earlier cry. The janitor, still gawking, fumbled his phone, and Tamara thrust the device at him. "Get this out now," she ordered, and he nodded, thumbs flying as he emailed the audio to a news tip line, the file pinging into the ether as Carl skidded to a halt, his eyes darting to the growing crowd, phones everywhere, a woman yelling, "That's assault." The clip hit X within minutes, #TSA abuse trending as millions heard Carl's voice snarling, "I'll bury you," since with Tamara's plea, and TSA brass stormed the terminal, yanking Carl back by his collar. "You're done, Holt," a supervisor barked, releasing Tamara with a curt, "Go, we'll investigate." She staggered free, necklace clutched tight, burns pulsing, and sank onto a bench. The jet bridge chaos fading as passengers clapped, the teenage boy grinning, "You're a legend." And she thought she'd turned it around, flip Vanessa's game with one desperate move. Her phone buzzed, notifications flooding, #justice for Tamara spiking. And she let herself believe she'd won, that Carl's defeat was the end of this nightmare, that she could limp to her hotel and heal. Then a shadow fell, Vanessa, standing in the terminal's glass-walled lounge, her uniform swapped for civilian clothes, her hazel eyes locked on Tamara through the crowd. She didn't approach, didn't speak, just pulled out her phone, her fingers deliberate as she dialed, lips curling into a grin that chilled Tamara's blood. Minutes later, Tamara's phone lit up with a text from an unknown number, "You're grounded. Check your email," and she opened it, heart sinking as an airline alert flashed, due to reported passenger terrorism. Tamara Jackson is banned from all flights, effective immediately. Vanessa vanished into the throng, her laughter a ghost in the air. And Tamara realized Carl was just a pawn. Vanessa had called in a bigger player. The CEO she'd seen schmoozing with her on a company retreat photo online, a golf buddy with power to crush her wings. She stood, burns searing, necklace heavy in her pocket, and stared at the departing flights she couldn't board. Stranded in New York with a victory that tasted like ash. Vanessa's smirk a promise that this war was far from over. Tamara Jackson slumped on a hard plastic bench in JFK's bustling terminal, the silver star necklace a cold weight in her pocket, its jagged edges digging into her palm as the burns on her chest pulsed beneath her torn blazer. A relentless reminder of Vanessa Holt's wrath, Her phone buzzed incessantly. The airline's ban email glaring from the screen. Passenger terrorism, a lie that pinned her to New York, thousands of miles from her Los Angeles kitchen where her Michelin star hung. Like a badge of honor, she was stranded. Her victory over Carl Holt's TSA ambush, a fleeting spark drowned by Vanessa's corporate counterpunch, and the terminal's chaos swirled around her, travelers dragging suitcases, announcements blaring, a teenage boy from the flight snapping a photo before darting off with a grin. Tamara's breath hitched, her burns a dull roar, but she refused to break, not after clawing out of that concrete cage, not with her father's voice echoing, "Shine, kid," through the haze of pain. She yanked her phone up, thumbed open Instagram, and hit live, the camera framing her bruised wrist, her soup-stained blouse, and the necklace she held aloft like a war trophy. "This is what they did to me," she said, voice steady but raw. "Ripped my father's gift off my neck, burned me, framed me, banned me, all because I'm here, in first class, where they think I don't belong." Her words poured out, a flood of truth, and the views climbed 10,000, 50,000, 100,000 in minutes, comments flashing, "This is disgusting, fight back, queen." As hashtag Justice for Tamara surged across X, a wildfire, she'd ignited with one desperate broadcast. She showed her burns, red and blistered, the audio of Carl's threat looping in the background, and the internet roared. Petitions popping up, "Reinstate Tamara Jackson," trending alongside clips of Vanessa's smirk, Carl's snarl, a movement born from her pain. Hours later, the airline buckled, an email pinging through, ban lifted. "We apologize for the inconvenience," and a press release hit. Vanessa Holt suspended pending investigation. Her smug face splashed across news sites, a seeming knockout blow that had Tamara's followers cheering, "You did it." She sank back, necklace clutched tight, a flicker of triumph warming her gut. Thinking she'd flipped the script, turned Vanessa's game into a public execution. The terminal's fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, a janitor sweeping nearby offered a nod, "Saw you online, you're tough," and she almost smiled, almost let herself believe she'd won, that the world's eyes would shield her now. Then her phone lit up again, a news alert from a cable channel owned by Richard Vance, the pinstripe-suited executive from the flight, his slick hair and Scotch glass unmistakable in the thumbnail. "Celebrity chef Tamara Jackson, race baiting. Fraud," the anchor's voice droned through her earbuds. "Reports suggest she staged the incident for attention, a pattern of exploiting race for fame." And grainy footage rolled, her life twisted into a caricature, her burns dismissed. As makeup, her necklace a prop. Tamara's stomach dropped. Richard's media empire had teeth, millions of viewers swallowing his lies. And the comments shifted. "She's a grifter," knew it was fake, as hate surged online, a tide turning against her faster than she could blink. She stood, legs shaky, and peered through the terminal's glass walls, spotting a flicker of blonde hair, Vanessa lurking near a coffee stand. Her phone pressed to her ear, lips moving rapid fire as she watched Tamara with a predator's gleam. Then the night exploded, a brick shattering her hotel window blocks away, glass raining onto the carpet where she'd planned to crash, protesters swarming the street below, their signs scrawled with venom, "Go back where you came from." Liar, fueled by Richard's broadcast, Vanessa's invisible hand stirring the pot. Tamara ducked into a cab, heart pounding, and sped to the hotel, arriving to find police taping off the lobby, a cop muttering, "They're pissed, saw it on TV," as a second brick sailed through, narrowly missing her head, lodging in the wall with a thud. She crouched behind a couch, burns searing, necklace clutched, and realized Vanessa hadn't just called the CEO. She dialed up an ally with a megaphone. Richard Vance, whose network could paint her as a villain to millions. The crowd chanted, "Fraud, fraud," their voices a wall of hate, and she peeked through the blinds, spotting a figure in the shadows, Vanessa, filming the chaos with a grin, her suspension a mask for a deeper strike. Tamara's phone buzzed, her sous chef texting, "They're boycotting the restaurant, what's happening?" And she saw the X posts, "Don't eat at her place, it's a scam." Likes piling up as Richard's smear bled into her real life. She'd thought the world's eyes were her armor, that exposing Carl would end it. But Vanessa had flipped the board, turned her victory into a crucible, and now the flames were licking at her heels. The hotel manager rushed in. "We're moving. It's not safe," and Tamara nodded, numb, following him to a back exit as sirens wailed. The necklace's broken star cutting into her palm, a symbol of a fight she'd thought she'd won. Vanessa's laughter echoed in her mind, a ghost haunting the crowd's roar. And Tamara knew this wasn't over, not with Richard's power amplifying Vanessa's venom, not with bricks flying, and her name a curse on strangers' lips, stranded in a city that suddenly felt like a battlefield. Tamara Jackson crouched behind a threadbare couch in the hotel lobby, her breath shallow as glass shards glittered on the carpet, the echoes of shattering windows still ringing in her ears. The silver star necklace clutched tight in her fist, like a lifeline fraying thread by thread. The burns on her chest throbbed beneath her torn blazer, a relentless pulse sensing with the chance of the mob outside. Fraud, fraud. Their voices a venomous tide whipped up by Richard Vance's smear campaign, Vanessa Holt's invisible hand pulling the strings from the shadows. Police lights flashed through the blinds, red and blue streaks cutting through the dark, and the hotel manager, a weary man with a sweat-soaked collar, darted toward her. "We're moving you. Basement safe room. Now," he hissed, his eyes wide, with panic as another brick thudded against the wall, plaster dust raining down. Tamara nodded, numb, and followed him through a back corridor, her shoes crunching glass, the necklace's jagged edges biting into her palm, a tether to her father's. Pride as the world she'd built burned around her. The manager unlocked a steel door, ushering her into a dim, concrete bunker, a cot in one corner, a flickering bulb overhead. "Stay here, I'll get help," he said, his voice trembling. And she sank onto the cot, burns searing, her phone buzzing with texts from her sous chef, restaurants getting threats. "What do we do?" She typed back, "Close it, stay safe," her fingers shaking as Richard's lies bled into Los Angeles. Her Michelin star tarnished by a boycott she couldn't fight from this hole. The door clicked shut, the manager's footsteps fading, and Tamara exhaled, thinking this was rock bottom, that hiding here might buy her time to breathe, to plan. Then a new face appeared, a hotel clerk named Eddie, late 20s, with a mop of curly hair and a nervous smile, slipping through the door with a first aid kit. "Saw you're live, Miss Jackson. You're a fighter. Let me patch you up," he said, his voice soft as he knelt beside her, dabbing her burns with gauze, the sting sharp but his touch steady. She relaxed, a flicker of trust sparking. "Thanks, Eddie. I thought everyone out there hated me," she murmured, and he grinned. "Not me. I've got your back. I'll even testify if you need it." What Vanessa did was sick. Tamara's chest warmed, a rare ally in this storm, and she handed him her phone. "Record this. Tell them what you saw," she urged, thinking his words could counter Richard's narrative. "Turn the tide again." Eddie nodded, filming a quick clip. "I work here. Saw the bricks. This ain't right." "Tamara's no fraud," his voice earnest as he handed it back. "Post that. It'll help." And she did, the video pinging online as she leaned against the wall, burns cooling under his care, believing she'd found a lifeline, a way to claw back from the edge. Minutes ticked by, the basement silent save for the drip of a leaky pipe, and Eddie stood. "I'll check upstairs, make sure it's clear," he said, slipping out, the door locking with a soft thud. Tamara scrolled X, #justice for Tamara flickering. Back to life, Eddie's clip gaining traction. He's right, she's a victim, protect her. And she almost smiled, almost let herself hope this was the pivot, that Vanessa's mob had misfired. Then the lock clicked again, and Eddie returned, his face pale, eyes darting. "Cops are overwhelmed. But I've got a plan. Stay put," he muttered, slipping away once more, and Tamara nodded. Trusting his nervous energy meant he was fighting. For her, she didn't hear the jingle of coins in his pocket, didn't see him detour to a shadowed corner of the lobby, didn't catch Richard Vance's voice on his phone. $5,000, keep her there. As Eddie pocketed a wad of cash, his earnest grin a mask for a knife he'd just twisted. The basement door rattled, not with rescue, but with menace, heavy boots stomping down the stairs. And a pack of men burst in, 6 of them, clad in black hoodies, faces obscured, reeking of beer and rage. a racist militia Vanessa had summoned. Through Richard's network, their fists clenched around bats and chains. "Found you, fraud," one growled, his voice a guttural snarl, and Tamara scrambled back. Caught tipping as she pressed against the wall, Burns roaring, "Eddie, help," she shouted. But he was gone, his betrayal a silent blade in her ribs. The leader swung a bat, splintering the cot's frame, and another lunged, fist slamming into her jaw. Blood flooding her mouth as she ducked a chain whizzing past her ear. She fought, nails clawing, knees striking, a chef's precision turned. Feral and bolted for a vent in the corner, prying it open with bloodied hands. Crawling through his boots pounded behind, their curses echoing in the tight steel tunnel. She emerged in an alley, gasping, face bruised, burns splitting open. The necklace still in her pocket, a miracle she hadn't lost, and staggered to her feet. The hotel a silhouette against the night sky. Her phone buzzed, a news alert. Tamara. Jackson's Michelin star revoked. Customer complaints flood in. Vanessa's planted lies hitting X. Food's trash. She's a scam. Likes piling up as her restaurant's legacy crumbled. A second blow from the same venomous hand. Tamara limped into a diner across the street, collapsing into a booth. Blood dripping onto the table, the waitress gasping, "You okay?" But she couldn't answer. Not with Eddie's face flashing in her mind, his soft words a lure for this. Trap, Vanessa's reach stretching from the flight to this alley. Her suspension a feint for a war she'd never stop waging. The necklace cut into her palm, a star dimmed by betrayal, and Tamara stared at the diner's flickering sign, knowing she'd escaped death but lost everything else, stranded in a city that had turned its back. Vanessa's laughter a ghost in the wind howling outside. Tamara Jackson slumped in a sticky diner booth, the neon sign outside buzzing faintly as blood trickled from her split lip onto the chipped Formica table. Her silver star necklace a jagged anchor in her pocket, its bent points cutting into her. Bruised hand, her chest burned, the blistered welts beneath her torn blazer screaming with every shallow breath, and her jaw throbbed where the malicious fist had landed, a purple bloom spreading under her skin. The waitress, a weary woman with tired eyes, hovered nearby. "You need a Dr. Hun," she said. But Tamara shook her head, words trapped behind the copper taste in her mouth, her mind replaying Eddie's betrayal, his soft lies luring her into that basement ambush. She'd crawled out of the vent, escaped the bats and chains, but Vanessa Holt's reach had followed, stripping her Michelin star with planted lies, turning her restaurant into a ghost town while Richard Vance's media machine painted her as a fraud. The diner's TV flickered, his network droning. Tamara Jackson's a con, end of story. And she clenched her fists, rage boiling over the despair, because she'd fought too hard, climbed too high to let them bury her in this. "Ellie." She pulled her phone from her blazer, cracked screen glowing, and hit record, angling it to catch her battered face, the burns, the blood. "This is what they did," she rasped. Voice raw but fierce. "Vanessa Holt, Richard Vance, they won't stop, but neither will I." And she held up the necklace, its silver star glinting defiantly, a symbol of her father's grit she wouldn't let them snuff out. She posted it, a live grenade lobbed into the digital fray, and X ignited. Hashtag Justice for Tamara roaring back to life, like surging past 1 million, comments flooding. "She's a warrior," shut down Vance, as strangers rallied, their voices, a lifeline pulling her from the brink. Protests erupted outside JFK, hundreds marching with signs. "Reinstate her star," "Fire Vanessa," horns blaring as clips of her diner video spread. Since with Eddie's clip, Carl's threat, a mosaic of truth piercing Richard's lies. By morning, the airline caved, a press release flashing. Vanessa Holt terminated. Full investigation launched, her smug face yanked from their sight, and Tamara sank back. The waitress sliding a coffee over, "You're trending, hun." Her smile faint but real. Her phone buzzed, her sous chef texting, "They're fighting for us." Bookings up, and she felt a rush, her strongest win yet. Vanessa's suspension flipped into a firing, the world's eyes a shield she'd forged. From blood and grit, she sipped the coffee, burns cooling, and let herself believe she'd turned it. That the mob's bricks and Vanessa's venom had hit a wall they couldn't break. The diner's door jingled, a news van rolling past. and she thought she'd sleep tonight, reclaim her life tomorrow, maybe even laugh at how she'd rallied a nation from a sticky booth. Then her phone screamed, an alert from Richard's network. Breaking, chef's violent past exposed. But it was blank, a glitch, and she frowned, refreshing, until a shadow loomed outside. A black SUV screeching to a halt across the street, its tinted window cracking open. A man in a ski mask leaned out, eyes locked on her through the diner's glass, and before she could move, he floored it. The vehicle slamming into her borrowed rental car parked nearby, metal crumpling like paper. Glass exploding as the SUV reversed and rammed again, a hitman's precision tearing it to shreds. Tamara dove under the table, heart hammering, the waitress screaming, "Call 911." As the SUV peeled off, tires smoking, and she crawled out, shaking, the necklace intact in her pocket, a miracle amid the wreckage. She staggered to the street, the car a mangled heap, and spotted a phone dropped by the fleeing hitman, its screen flashing a live feed. Vanessa's face grinning from a hotel room. "Told you I'd get her." Her laugh a dagger through the static, hacked into Richard's network for Tamara to see. Cops swarmed, lights flashing, and one knelt beside her, "You okay?" But she couldn't speak. Not with Vanessa's glee burning in her mind, not with the diner's TV now showing. Protesters at JFK, still marching, unaware her life had just hung by a thread. The hitman vanished, the phone wiped blank when police grabbed it, and Tamara stood, blood dripping, burns splitting, realizing Vanessa's firing wasn't a loss, it was fuel. Richard's money buying a killer to finish what bricks couldn't. She'd rallied the world, shut down the terminal, forced Vanessa out, her sweetest triumph yet. But it had painted a target on her back, bigger, deadlier, and Vanessa was watching, laughing. Her suspension a springboard for murder. The cop muttered, "We'll find him." But Tamara knew better. Richard's empire had claws, and Vanessa's hate had no bottom. Her restaurant's revival a fleeting gasp before this plunge. She gripped the necklace, its star a flicker in the chaos, and stared at the wreckage, wondering how she'd dodged death only to land in a war she couldn't outrun. Vanessa's voice a ghost in the smoke curling from her ruined car. Tamara Jackson knelt beside the twisted wreckage of her rental car, the asphalt outside the diner gritty under her knees, her silver star necklace a jagged lifeline in her pocket as the acrid stench of burning rubber stung her nose. The hitman's SUV a fading roar in the Queen's night. Her chest burned, the blistered welts beneath her torn blazer splitting open with each ragged breath, and blood crusted her lip where the militia had struck. Her jaw a throbbing ache she couldn't shake. Cops swarmed the scene, their radios crackling, flashlights slicing through the dark, and one, a lanky officer with a buzz cut, crouched beside her. "You're lucky. Could have been you in there," he said, his voice tight as he eyed the mangled metal, glass glittering like teeth across the street. Tamara's hands shook, Vanessa Holt's live feed still searing her mind. That grin. "Told you I'd get her," a taunt from a hotel room thousands of miles away, hacked into Richard Vance's network to twist the knife deeper. She'd rallied the world from the diner, forced Vanessa's firing, shut down JFK with protests. Her sweetest victory yet, only for Richard's hitman to ram her car. A lethal counterstrike she'd dodged by seconds. The cop scooped up the hitman's dropped phone, its screen now blank, wiped clean, no trace. He muttered, bagging it as evidence, and Tamara stood, legs wobbly. The necklace's weight her only anchor as sirens wailed, the waitress peering from the diner's door, eyes wide with shock. She'd outrun death, crawled from a vent, exposed Carl, turned Vanessa's game. But this was a new beast, a killer bought with Richard's millions. Vanessa's hate a flame that wouldn't die. Then a patrol car screeched up, a stocky officer leaping out, spotted him 2 blocks over, got him. He shouted, and Tamara's heart leapt, a flicker of hope as they hauled the hitman in. Ski mask gone, a weary man with a scar across his cheek, cuffed and snarling. "I ain't saying nothing." The lanky cop grabbed her arm, gentle but firm. "We'll book him. You're safe now." And she nodded, relief washing over her, thinking this was it. The hitman's arrest a shield Vanessa couldn't pierce. Richard's network spun it fast, a breaking alert buzzing her phone. Chef's gang ties, hitman linked to Jackson. The anchor's voice oily through her earbuds. Sources say she hired him to fake an attack. Classic grift. And Tamara's stomach dropped. Another lie. But passenger footage from the flight flooded X. Since with her diner video, that's BS. She's the target. Likes piling up. Millions calling it out. Vance is desperate. And the narrative cracked. Her name clearing again. She sank onto a curb. Burns pulsing. The necklace clutched tight. And let herself believe she'd dodged the bullet. That the cops had her back. That Vanessa's hired gun was the end of this nightmare. The lanky cop scribbled notes. Wheel. Dig into who paid him. He promised. And she exhaled. Picturing a hotel bed. A hot shower. A moment to heal. Then headlights flared. A second patrol car rolling up slow. And a new officer stepped out. A burly man with a patchy beard and a sergeant's stripe. His eyes narrowing as he scanned her. "Tamara Jackson?" he asked, voice low, and she nodded. "Yeah, that's me, expecting backup, not a trap." He smirked. "You're under arrest, drug trafficking." And before she could blink, he yanked her arms back, cuffs biting into her wrists, her burns screaming as he shoved her against the car. "Found a stash in your hotel room, big haul." Tamara's mind reeled. "That's impossible. I've been here," she protested, but he slammed her harder. "Tell it to the judge." His breath sour with tobacco as bystanders gawked. Phones up. The teenage boy from the flight shouting, "She's innocent." The lanky cop frowned. "Hold up, she's clean." But the sergeant snarled, "My call, back off," and dragged her to the car, her blazer snagging on the door as he tossed her in. The necklace tumbling to the seat, a silver glint in the dark. She twisted, spotting Vanessa through the precinct window blocks away, leaning against a patrol car, her blonde hair glowing under a streetlight, smirking as she waved. Her brother, the sergeant, executing her next move. Tamara's heart sank, sobbing as the car rolled, the hitman's arrest a feint. This frame up a deeper cut, Vanessa's family striking again. Drugs planted in the hotel wreckage she'd fled, a lie to lock her away. The precinct loomed, a gray fortress, and she realized Vanessa's firing hadn't slowed her. It had unleashed her. Richard's money-buying killers, her brother's badge-buying bars, and Tamara's victory was a ghost, evaporating as the cuffs tightened, her burns a fire no one could see. She pressed her face to the window, the necklace glinting beside her, a star dimmed by betrayal, and knew she'd dodged death only to land in a cage. Vanessa's laughter a shadow in the glass, her brother's smirk a mirror of her hate, the world's rallied cries fading as the car turned a corner, stranding her in a fight she couldn't outrun. Hey, comment number 1 if you think Tamara's getting screwed by a corrupt system. Hit like if Vanessa's family pulling this is pure evil. And subscribe to see if she breaks free from this insanity. Tell me, folks, have you ever seen a cop twist justice this dirty? Or is Vanessa's brother a new breed of monster? Now, can Tamara outsmart this precinct trap, or will Vanessa's next blow crush her for good? Stay tuned to find out. Tamara Jackson slumped in the back of the patrol car, her wrists raw from the cuffs biting into her skin, the silver star necklace glinting faintly on the seat beside her, a fragile relic of her father's pride as the precinct's gray bulk loomed closer through the window, her chest burned. The blistered welts beneath her torn blazer a relentless throb, and her jaw ached where the militia had struck. Blood crusted on her lip, mixing with the salt of tears she couldn't hold back. The sergeant, Vanessa Holt's brother, gripped the wheel, his patchy beard bristling as he smirked into the rearview mirror. "Drug trafficking's a big charge, chef. Should have stayed in your lane." His voice a gravelly taunt that echoed Vanessa's venom from 30,000 feet. She dodged Richard's hitman, rallied the world to fire Vanessa, turned a diner booth into a war room, her strongest stand yet, only for this crooked cop to plant drugs in her hotel wreckage. Cuffing her as Vanessa waved from the shadows, a family of vipers striking in sync. The car jolted over a pothole, her burns slamming against the seat, a cry ripping from her throat. But the sergeant chuckled, "Save it for the judge," and she clenched her fists, the necklace's jagged edges cutting into her palm, a lifeline. She wouldn't let go. The precinct swallowed them, a maze of flickering lights and stale coffee, and he shoved her into a holding cell. The clang of the bars a gunshot in her skull as he tossed her phone into a bin. No lawyer yet. Sit tight. His boots echoing down the hall. Tamara sank onto a metal bench, burns pulsing, cuffs bruising, and stared at the necklace in her hand, its bent star a flicker of hope in this concrete tomb. She'd faced worse, banks that laughed at her dreams, critics who sneered at her food. But this was a cage, and Vanessa's brother was the key she couldn't reach. Hours crawled, her mind racing, until a new face appeared, a weary lawyer in a cheap suit, name's Marcus. "Saw your videos, I'm pro bono," he said, slipping through the bars with a notepad, his eyes sharp behind scratched glasses. Tamara spilled it all, the flight, the burns, Carl, the hitman, the drugs. Her voice steadied despite the quake in her gut, and Marcus nodded. "Got passenger footage. Diner clips, we'll bust this open," pulling strings to get her bailed out. By dawn, the sergeant scowling as a judge reviewed the clips. Charges pending. He's off duty. The gavel a crack of light in her dark. She walked free, necklace in pocket, burns bandaged by a medic Marcus dragged in, and headed straight for Vanessa's press conference, a last-minute event at a midtown hotel. X buzzing with her firing. Holt speaks out noon. Tamara stormed. In blazer torn but chin high, the crowd parting as she faced Vanessa, pristine in a navy dress. Microphone in hand. "I'm the victim here. She attacked me." Her hazel eyes glinting with crocodile tears. Tamara held up the necklace. "This is what you broke. What you burned me for. What your brother framed me for." Her voice a blade cutting through the gasps. And the crowd roared, "Phones up. Tell the truth." A woman shouted, the teenage boy from the flight grinning. "Got her." Vanessa faltered, lips trembling, but Tamara pushed forward. "You're done." And the applause was thunder, her strongest stand yet. A chef-turned-warrior in a room of witnesses. She thought she'd flipped it, Vanessa's lies crumbling. Under her glare, the world's eyes her sword and shield. Then Vanessa smirked, subtle but vicious, and a screen flared behind her. A forged video rolling. Tamara Jackson assaults flight attendant. Grainy footage of a woman in her blazer swinging at Vanessa, edited to perfection. Her face swapped in by Richard's tech wizards, the crowd gasping. "No way, she's a thug." As X flipped, knew she was fake, like surging on the lie. Tamara froze. "That's not me," she shouted, but the noise drowned her. Vanessa stepping back. Justice at last, her voice syrupy as security pushed Tamara out. The crowd turning. "Liar." A man spat, her triumph ashes in her mouth. She stumbled into the street, burns splitting, and her phone buzzed. Marcus texting. "They bought it. I'm out. Sorry." His cheap suit nowhere in sight, abandoning her as the forgery stuck. Then a shadow loomed, the sergeant, off duty but not off her trail, swinging a bat from an alley. "Should have stayed locked up," he growled and cracked it across her ribs. Air exploding from her lungs as she hit the pavement, blood pooling. Under her cheek, the necklace skittering free, a silver star in the gutter. He swung again, her arm snapping under the blow, a scream tearing free as he loomed. Vanessa says hi, his beard a blur above her, and she curled tight, burns blazing, bones breaking. The crowd's cheers a distant echo as Vanessa's final card played, a lie that turned her victory into a beating, her defiance a target for his rage. She gasped, vision fading, the necklace inches away, a star she couldn't reach, and knew she'd pushed too far. Vanessa's hate a beast that wouldn't stop. Her brother's bat its teeth, tearing her apart on a midtown street. Tamara Jackson lay crumpled on the cold midtown pavement, her broken arm a twisted ruin beneath her torn blazer, the silver star necklace glinting inches away in a puddle of her own blood, its jagged edges reflecting the streetlights as her chest, burned, blistered welts splitting open with each shallow gasp. Pain seared through her ribs where Vanessa Holt's brother had swung his bat, a dull crack echoing in her skull, and her vision blurred. The sergeant's patchy beard a fading shadow. As he loomed, Vanessa says hi, his final snarl before his boots retreated into the alley, leaving her battered under a gray New York sky. Her lip bled, jaw throbbing from the militia's earlier blow, and tears mixed with the grit on her face, sobs racking her as the press conference's cheers faded. Vanessa's forged video a lie that had turned her triumph into this, a chef, turned warrior beaten down by a cop's rage. She'd exposed Vanessa mid-broadcast, rallied the crowd. Her strongest stand yet, only for that fake footage to flip the world against her, mark as bailing. The bat swinging, a trap she'd walked into blind. Her good hand clawed for the necklace, fingers brushing its star, a lifeline to her father's voice. Shine, kid, but it slipped, slick with blood, and she curled tighter, burned screaming. Bones grinding, the street silence save for a distant siren she couldn't trust. Then a clatter broke the haze. A homeless man with a cart shuffling closer. Lady, you alive? His voice rough as he knelt, and she nodded, barely. Help me, she rasped, and he scooped the necklace, pressing it into her palm. Hold on. Before dialing 911 on a cracked phone, woman down, bad shape, his words a lifeline. As he stayed, a stranger's kindness in a city that had turned its back. Paramedics swarmed, lights flashing, lifting her onto a stretcher. Stay with us, a woman urged. And Tamara gripped the necklace, its star cutting deeper, a tether as they rushed her to Bellevue. The air a blur of white coats and beeping machines, her arms splinted, burns bandaged, ribs taped, a doctor muttering, she's lucky. Could have been worse. She wasn't lucky, not with Vanessa's smirk burned into her mind, not with her lawyer gone. Her restaurant boycotted, but she'd survived, and that was something. Days later, healed enough to limp, she tracked Vanessa to another press conference. A midtown rooftop this time, buzzing with Holt's comeback, and Tamara slipped in. Blazer swap for a hoodie, the necklace hidden under her shirt, its star a secret fire. Vanessa stood radiant. I've been cleared, it's over, her voice smooth as glass. But Tamara had a weapon, a hidden audio recorder from the diner. Vanessa's gloating. Told you I'd get her. Since with the hitman's feed, a truth she'd buried in her pocket through the chaos. She crashed the stage, not over yet, her voice ablade as she played it loud, the crowd gasping. Phones up, Vanessa's face paling as the words echoed. I'll finish her, a confession raw and real. Richard Vance's network feed. Cutting out, technical difficulties, as X exploded. She's guilty, arrest her. Likes surging past millions. Cops stormed in, cuffs snapping on Vanessa mid-sentence. You can't prove. Her protest dying as they dragged her off. The crowd cheering, Tamara, Tamara. A chant that shook the rooftop, her sweetest victory yet. Vanessa's empire, crumbling under her own voice. She limped away, ribs aching, necklace warm against her skin, and sank onto a bench, thinking she'd won, that justice had claws sharp enough to end this war, that she could rebuild from here, her restaurant, her name, her life. Then her phone buzzed, a news alert. Compton home bombed, one dead, and her breath stopped. The photo showing her childhood house, her mother's sanctuary, a smoldering ruin. The headline searing, Tamara Jackson's mother killed in blast, she screamed, a sound that split the city noise, the necklace falling to her lap, its star stained with ash in her mind as sirens wailed in Compton. Richard Vance's face flashing on X, out on bail, no comment, his smirk a ghost. Of Vanessa's, a bomb his final play while she'd fought here. She collapsed, knees hitting the pavement, the crowd's cheers a distant hum as grief swallowed her. Her mother's voice, cook for me, baby, gone in a blast she couldn't stop. Vanessa's jail cell a hollow win, her brother's bat a prelude to this. A family taken because she dared to shine. The medic from Bellevue found her, Tamara, come with me, but she couldn't move. Blood and burns nothing to this void, the necklace clutched tight, a star dimmed by loss. And she realized Vanessa's arrest wasn't the end, Richard's. Money had struck deeper, her victory a pyre she'd lit herself, leaving her stranded in a city that couldn't save what mattered most. She rocked, sobbing, the rooftop a memory as X buzzed, rip, justice failed. And Vanessa's leaked jail call hit. I'll finish her, a vow from behind bars, a promise Richard had kept. Her mother's ashes a wound no wind could heal, the star in her hand a flicker she couldn't shield. Tamara Jackson knelt on the jagged pavement outside the midtown rooftop, her broken arm throbbing beneath a splint, the silver star necklace clutched in her good hand, its jagged edges slick with sweat and blood as grief tore through her like a storm swallowing the sky. Her chest burned, blistered welts cracking beneath her hoodie, and her ribs ached from the sergeant's bat. But those pains were whispers against the void where her mother's voice once lived. Cook for me. Baby, silenced by Richard Vance's bomb. Her Compton home now ash and rubble on a news loop she couldn't unsee. She'd buried Vanessa Holt with that audio, crashed her press conference, watched cops cuff her mid-lie, a victory that had roared through X. Hashtag justice for Tamara spiking past 10 million. But it was dust, her mother's death a wound no crowd could heal. Richard's smirk a shadow from bail, Vanessa's jail call, I'll finish her. A vow he'd kept. Paramedics hovered, the same Bellevue medic kneeling. Tamara, let us help, her voice soft. But Tamara rocked, sobbing, the necklace her anchor as sirens wailed, X buzzing with rip. She didn't deserve this, a world mourning. Too late. Days blurred, a funeral in Compton. Her mother's casket a weight she carried alone. The star gleaming on her neck as she shoveled dirt, vowing, I'll rebuild, mama. Her voice a rasp over the preacher's prayer. Protesters, lining the streets, Tamara strong, signs aloft, a nation's rage her shield. She returned to New York, limping but unbowed, donations flooding from strangers. For your restaurant, keep shining, millions piling up. And she opened a new spot in Harlem. Mama's star, its silver sign a twin to her necklace. Bookings full the first night, a line snaking around the block. Critics raving, she's back. Better than ever, a triumph carved from loss. The necklace hung restored, a jeweler's gift, its star whole again. And she stood in her kitchen, chopping onions with one hand, burns fading, ribs healing, believing she'd turned it. That Vanessa's bars and Richard's flight last seen boarding a private jet to nowhere meant the war was won. Then a twist cracked the calm, a courtroom feed hit X, the hitman, scar-faced and weary, testifying live. I didn't die, they made me, his voice shaking as he pointed at grainy photos. Vanessa and Richard in a hotel, planning it all, the car crash a feint, the bomb his coerced finale, they'd kill my kid if I didn't. Tears streaming as prosecutors pounced, conspiracy, murder, charges piling up. Tamara froze, spatula in hand, the diner's wreckage flashing back, his phone, Vanessa's laugh. A setup she'd survived by luck. An X erupted. They're done, life for Holt. Likes surging as Richard's empire teetered, his jet. Tracked to a Caribbean hideout, feds closing in. Vanessa's trial sped. Her navy dress swapped for orange. Her smirk gone as the hitman's words nailed her. Life without parole, a gavel's crack sealing her cage. Richard's extradition pending. His network imploding. Vance Media bankrupt, headlines blaring. A dynasty felled by a chef's grit. Tamara stood in Mama's star, the kitchen humming. Patrons toasting her to Tamara. Glasses clinking, and she gripped the necklace, its star warm against her skin, whispering, We did it, Mama. A victory bittersweet, her mother's. Loss a scar no justice could erase. But her name shone, a beacon rebuilt from ash. She plated a dish, her father's recipe, and smiled, faint but real, thinking it was over. That the world's eyes had finally shielded her. That Vanessa's bars and Richard's ruin were the end. Then a shadow flickered, a note slipping under her restaurant door as the last customer left. I'm still watching, scrawled in black ink. No signature, but the chill was Vanessa's, a ghost from a cell she couldn't escape, or Richard's. A fugitive's taunt from the edge of the earth. Tamara's heart stuttered, the necklace heavy, as she stepped outside. Harlem's night thick with fog, a figure darting across the street, too quick to catch. A silhouette she couldn't name. She locked the door, breath fogging, and gripped the star, its points sharp again in her mind. A reminder she'd fought, won, lost, rebuilt. But the war wasn't dead, a new threat lurking in the dark. Her triumph a flame they'd never let die. She turned back, kitchen lights glowing, and stood tall, burns faded, arm healing, ribs strong. A chef who'd faced a plane, a bat, a bomb, and lived, but the note burned in her pocket. A question she couldn't answer, a shadow she couldn't fight, not yet. The city pulsed, quiet now. Tamara's unbreakable, a final post fading. And she whispered to the star, we're not done. Her voice steel, knowing justice had won a battle. Not the war, her mother's memory of fire. They couldn't quench, a new fight looming as that shadow moved, watching, waiting. A promise unkept in the night. Tamara Jackson's harrowing journey teaches us resilience can shine through even the darkest storms. Of injustice, Her fight began with a simple necklace, a symbol of her father's love. Ripped away by Vanessa Holt's prejudice, escalating into a war of burns, betrayal, and bombs. The first lesson is unwavering courage. Tamara faced racism head-on. From scalding soup to a hitman's wrath, never buckling despite losing her mother, her star. Her peace, she turned pain into power, rallying millions with raw truth, showing that one voice can spark a movement. Second, systemic bias is a hydra cut off one head. Like Vanessa's job, and another, like her brother's badge or Richard's media, grows back fiercer. Tamara's victories were fleeting, each win met with a crueler blow, proving justice demands relentless vigilance. Third, allies can falter. Eddie's betrayal and Marcus's retreat remind us trust is a gamble in a fight this brutal. Finally, triumph is bittersweet. Tamara rebuilt her restaurant, but her mother's loss lingers, a scar no court can heal. Her story screams that racism isn't a single act, it's a web of hate, power, and revenge. And beating it takes more than grit. It takes a world watching, fighting beside you. So, what do you think? Can one person's stand really topple a system, or does it need us all? Comment below, hit like if Tamara's fire inspires you, subscribe for more racism stories that hit hard, and share to spread her fight. Thanks for riding this roller coaster with us. Here's to shining through the shadows, always.